Her real story from Michigan, when I built this house with my own hands. They put me in the basement. Share this video if you believe respect should flow both ways in families. Hit subscribe for more real stories about finding your voice when the world tries to silence you. The words hit me like ice water thrown across my face. Margaret, you will need to move your things downstairs. The kids need your room for their gaming setup. My daughter-in-law Rachel delivers this news while wiping down the granite countertops I helped pay for. Her voice carrying that practiced casualness she uses when making decisions about my life without consulting me first. I stand in the doorway of what was my master bedroom until 5 minutes ago, watching my grandson Tyler drag my reading chair toward the staircase, the chair where I nursed my late husband through his final months. The chair where I read bedtime stories to these same grandchildren, when they were small enough to curl up in my lap, just temporarily. Grandma Maggie calls out my granddaughter Sophia from inside the room, already arranging gaming monitors on my antique dresser. We promise we will take good care of everything, but I know better now. I have learned that temporarily in this house means until you stop complaining about it. My hands shake as I grip the wooden banister, following my belongings down into the basement. The concrete steps feel cold through my slippers, each one taking me further from the life I thought I would earn. At 72, I never imagined I would be relegated to a windowless room that smells of laundry detergent and forgotten Christmas decorations. I sit on the edge of what will now be my bed, a thin mattress they dragged down from the guest room, and try to remember when I became so dispensable in the house I built with my own hands. Literally, I was a construction supervisor for 35 years before I retired. I know every nail, every beam, every pipe in these walls because I put them there. The irony tastes bitter in my mouth. I designed this house for my golden years, imagining quiet mornings in the sunroom, afternoon tea in the garden, evenings by the fireplace. Instead, I am surrounded by storage boxes and the constant hum of the water heater. My son Michael appears at the bottom of the stairs, his face wearing that expression of forced cheer he has perfected since his wife started making the household decisions. Mom, I know this isn't ideal, but the kids really need space for their computers. You understand, right? With virtual school and all their activities. I understand plenty. I understand that when Rachel moved in 3 years ago, she slowly began rearranging everything to her preferences. I understand that my input became suggestions, then requests, then finally, just complaints to be dismissed. I understand that somewhere along the way, I stopped being the matriarch of this family and became its burden. Of course, I hear myself saying the same words I have been saying for months, whatever works best for everyone, but something inside me refuses to settle this time. Maybe it is the way Tyler looked right through me when I asked him to be careful with my chair. Maybe it is how Rachel's face brightened when she realized she could claim my bedroom for her children without even pretending to feel guilty about it. Or maybe it is because I found something yesterday tucked behind the furnace where I thought I would lost it years ago. A manila envelope containing the original deed to this house, the construction permits I filed myself, and the bank records showing every mortgage payment I made alone after Robert died. Legal proof that this isn't their house where I happen to live. This is my house where they happen to be staying. I pull the envelope from beneath my pillow and trace my name on the deed with one finger. Margaret Ann Sullivan, sole owner. Not Michael Sullivan and family. Not a shared property. Mine. The basement ceiling creaks as footsteps pound across the floor above. Gaming chairs rolling across hardwood. The sound of my life being reorganized without my consent, one room at a time. I remember the day I signed the papers to buy this land. I was 45, recently widowed, determined to build something solid for my future. I worked double shifts for 2 years to save the down payment. I spent weekends learning electrical work, plumbing, tile installation. When Michael was in high school, he would come help me measure lumber and mix concrete, proud to tell his friends his mom was building their house herself. Now that same son stands in my basement telling me how grateful I should be for this arrangement. The kids promise they will visit you down here all the time. He continues, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. And think about it, you will have so much privacy. No one bothering you when you want to read or watch your shows. Privacy. That is what we are calling isolation now. After he leaves, I sit in the semi-darkness and listen to the sounds of my house being claimed by others. Rachel's voice carries down through the heating vents as she directs Tyler and Sophia in setting up their new space. Put the gaming desk right where Grandma's bed used to be. The lighting is perfect there. Perfect for them. A cave for me. I walk over to the small window that sits at ground level, the only source of natural light in this concrete box. Through it, I can see feet walking past on the sidewalk, just feet, because that is all the view this window allows. I used to watch sunrise from my bedroom window. Now I will watch ankles. The first night in the basement, I barely sleep. The furnace kicks on every hour with a metallic bang that echoes through the floor. Water runs through pipes in the walls. Whenever someone upstairs uses the bathroom, by morning, my arthritis has flared from the dampness, and my back aches from the thin mattress that has clearly seen better decades. But I drag myself upstairs to make breakfast. Same as always. I stand at the stove scrambling eggs and frying bacon while Rachel sits at the island scrolling through her phone. The kids rush through, grabbing food without acknowledgement, focused on getting back to their computers. "Morning, Mom," Michael says, kissing my cheek absently before pouring coffee into a travel mug. "How would you sleep in your new room?" "Fine," I lie, watching him rush toward the door. "Just fine." Rachel finally looks up from her phone. "Oh good, I was worried the basement might be too noisy, but you are such a deep sleeper. I figured you would adjust quickly." I have never been a deep sleeper. She has never asked about my sleep patterns. But why should facts matter when assumptions are so much more convenient? After they all leave work, school, errands that somehow never include asking if I need anything, I stand in my former bedroom and stare at the transformation. My reading nook has become a charging station for electronics. My jewelry box sits pushed into a corner, covered by gaming controllers. The family photo from my wedding day has been moved to make room for a computer monitor. 47 years of marriage, reduced to an afterthought on a cluttered dresser. I walk through each room of my house, seeing it with new eyes. The living room where my furniture has been pushed aside to accommodate Rachel's preferred arrangement. The kitchen where my spice rack has been reorganized according to her system, leaving me unable to find ingredients for my own recipes. The back porch where my gardening supplies have been moved to make room for their outdoor speakers. In every space, I see evidence of my gradual erasure. That afternoon, I drive to the public library and use their computer to research tenant rights, housing laws, property ownership regulations. I am not sure what I am looking for exactly, but I know I need to understand my legal position before I do anything else. What I discover makes my hands shake with something between rage and relief. As the sole owner of this property, I have the absolute right to determine who lives here and under what conditions. My son and his family are not tenants with leases. They are guests who I have allowed to stay indefinitely. Guests who can be asked to leave with proper notice. The librarian, a kind woman named Patricia, who remembers me from my construction days, notices my distress. "Everything all right, Margaret? You look like you have seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," I tell her. "Maybe I have been looking at my own ghost for the past 3 years." That evening, I sit in the basement with my laptop, researching local apartments, retirement communities, and small houses for rent. Not for me, for them. I print out listings, highlight options that would suit a family of 4, calculate costs based on Michael's salary. I am not being cruel. I am being practical. The next morning, I wake before dawn and climb the stairs to make coffee in my own kitchen. I sit at the island and spread the rental listings across the granite surface, studying each option carefully. 3-bedroom apartments in good school districts, single-family homes with yards for the kids. Places where they can arrange furniture however they like, because they will actually be the tenants. When Rachel comes down for her morning coffee, she stops short at seeing the papers. "What is all this?" she asks, scanning the apartment listings with growing alarm. Research, I reply calmly. I thought you might like to see what is available in your price range. Her face goes pale. Our price range for what? For when you are ready to get a place of your own. Michael appears in the doorway, still in his pajamas, hair disheveled from sleep. Mom, what is going on? I slide the deed across the counter toward him. I own this house, Michael. I always have. I have been letting you live here out of love. But somewhere along the way, you all started acting like it was your right, instead of my generosity. The silence that follows feels heavier than the basement air I have been breathing for the past month. Rachel finds her voice first. You are evicting us. Your own family? I am asking you to find appropriate housing for your family. I correct. Housing where you can make all the decisions about who sleeps where and who gets respect. Tyler appears on the stairs, drawn by the raised voices behind him. Sophia peers around the corner, both kids sensing the tension, even if they don't understand the cause. Grandma, are you mad at us? Sophia asks in a small voice. My heart clenches, but I keep my expression steady. I am disappointed that no one in this family thought to ask how I felt about giving up my bedroom. Sweetie, I am hurt that my comfort became less important than your gaming setup. Michael runs his hands through his hair, a gesture I remember from his teenage years when he would been caught doing something wrong. Mom, we didn't mean, we thought you would be okay with it. You never said anything. When have I ever been asked what I wanted? When have any of you considered that I might have opinions about how my own house should be run? The questions hang in the air like morning fog, impossible to ignore. Rachel crosses her arms defensively. We have been contributing to expenses. We pay our share of groceries and utilities. You pay a small portion of utilities, I correct. I pay the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance on a house I built myself. You contribute what most families spend on coffee each month. The math is devastating when spoken aloud. We all know it. Michael sinks into a chair, the weight of reality settling on his shoulders. How long do we have? 60 days, I reply. Plenty of time to find something suitable and transition the kids to their new schools if needed. Their new schools, Rachel's voice climbs toward panic. You want us to uproot the children because you are having some kind of midlife crisis? I stand up slowly, feeling every one of my 72 years in my bones, but also feeling something I would almost forgotten my own strength. Rachel, I am not having a midlife crisis. I am having a moment of clarity, and my moment of clarity tells me that a woman who built her own house shouldn't be sleeping in the basement, so teenagers can have more room for video games. Tyler's face flushes red. We didn't ask you to go to the basement. You said it was fine because that is what grandmothers do, honey. We say things are fine when they are not, to keep peace in the family. But I am too old to keep peace at the cost of my own dignity. The breakfast conversation ends with my family scattered to various rooms, presumably to digest what they have learned. I clean up the papers, put the deed back in its envelope, and head down to the basement to start planning my next 60 days. But first, I have a phone call to make. Patricia, it is Margaret Sullivan. Do you remember mentioning that your church has a lawyer who helps seniors with legal questions? I think I would like to speak with him. Within an hour, I am sitting in the office of Thomas Chen, an attorney who specializes in elder law and family property disputes. He reviews my deed, examines the property records, and confirms what I already knew but needed to hear. Officially, Mrs. Sullivan, you have absolute legal right to determine who lives in your home. Your family members have no tenancy rights, since they have no formal lease agreement, and pay no rent. You can ask them to leave with reasonable notice, which you have already provided. And if they refuse, then we file for an unlawful detainer action. But I don't think it will come to that. Most family situations resolve once everyone understands the legal reality. I drive home feeling lighter than I have in months. Not happy, exactly. There is grief in setting boundaries with people you love. But clear, crystal clear. That evening, Rachel approaches me in the basement where I am reading. She sits on the edge of my thin mattress, her expression softer than it has been in years. "Margaret, I owe you an apology. A big one." I mark my place in the book and give her my attention. "I think somewhere along the way, I started treating this like our house, instead of your house. I got comfortable and forgot that your kindness isn't the same thing as having no choice. It is not a complete understanding, but it is a beginning. I got swept up in making everything perfect for my kids, and I stopped seeing how we were making things imperfect for you. Taking your bedroom was wrong. I know that now. Why didn't you know it then?" I ask gently. She is quiet for a long moment, because it was easier to not think about it. Because when you didn't complain, I assumed you were happy. Because I wanted your room for the kids, and I found a way to convince myself you wouldn't mind. Honesty. Finally, will you consider letting us stay if we make changes? Real changes? I set my book aside completely. "What kind of changes?" "You get your bedroom back immediately tonight. Tyler and Sophia can share one of the other bedrooms until we figure out a better solution. I will ask your opinion before rearranging anything in your house. We will contribute more financially, a real amount that reflects what housing actually costs. And if I still want you to find your own place," her voice cracks slightly, "then we will respect that decision and leave without drama. No guilt trips, no making the kids beg you to change your mind. No family pressure campaigns." I study her face, looking for signs of manipulation or false promises. Instead, I see something I haven't seen in years: acknowledgement of my autonomy. "I need time to think about it," I tell her. "Of course, take all the time you need." That night, for the first time in a month, I sleep in my own bed. Tyler and Sophia moved their gaming equipment without complaint, working together to fit everything into Sophia's room temporarily. Michael helped move my furniture back where it belonged, his face grim with what I hope is shame. Lying in my own space, surrounded by my own things, I can think clearly about what I actually want. I love my family, but I would forgotten that love doesn't require self-erasure. I want them close, but not at the cost of my personhood. I want to help them, but not by pretending their convenience matters more than my comfort. Over the next week, changes appear throughout the house. Rachel asks my opinion about dinner plans. Michael takes over his share of household expenses, contributing enough to actually help with the mortgage. The kids knock on my door before entering my room and wait for permission to sit on my furniture. It is not perfect, but it is respectful. More importantly, it is sustainable. For the first time in 3 years, I can imagine continuing this arrangement without losing more pieces of myself along the way. On a Saturday morning, I find Tyler and Sophia in the kitchen making pancakes. They are working together, measuring ingredients, and taking turns with the mixing. The kind of cooperation that only happens when kids are trying to make up for something. "We are making breakfast for everyone," Sophia announces. "To say thank you for letting us stay, and to say sorry for taking your room." Tyler adds, not meeting my eyes but clearly sincere. I help them plate the pancakes and set the table. Michael and Rachel join us. And for the first time in months, we eat a meal together where I feel like a person instead of a service provider. I have been thinking about our arrangement. I tell them over coffee. I am willing to try making this work if everyone can continue respecting the boundaries we have established. The relief on their faces is immediate and profound. But I continue. This is a trial period, 6 months. If anyone slips back into taking me for granted, or if I start feeling invisible in my own home again, we revisit the 60-day notice. Michael nods solemnly. That is more than fair, Mom. Thank you for giving us a chance to do better. Rachel reaches across the table to squeeze my hand. I promise you will not regret this decision. I hope not, I reply, because next time, there will not be another chance. 3 months later, I am sitting in my sunroom reading the newspaper when Patricia calls from the library. Margaret, you will never believe this, but remember that young woman who was asking about tenant rights last month. the one whose mother-in-law was making her life miserable. I remember, she came in today asking about property ownership laws. Turns out her mother-in-law has been telling everyone the house belongs to the whole family. But the deed is only in her name. She wants to know her options. I smile, remembering my own research session. What did you tell her? I gave her the same advice. I gave you knowledge is power. And understanding your legal position is the first step toward changing your situation. After we hang up, I think about that young woman probably sitting in her kitchen right now, staring at deed papers and realizing she has more power than she knew. I think about all the people who accept uncomfortable situations because they don't realize they have alternatives. I think about the 3 months since my family learned I owned this house, and how different our relationships have become when built on mutual respect instead of assumptions. That evening, Michael finds me in the garden where I am planting bulbs for next spring. He kneels beside me, helping me dig holes for the tulips. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you happy?" "I mean, really happy with how things are working out?" I sit back on my heels and consider the question seriously. I am satisfied, Michael. I feel respected and valued in my own home. My opinions matter again. My comfort is considered, and my contributions are acknowledged. But are you happy? Happiness comes and goes. I tell him, patting soil around a bulb. Respect is more important because it is sustainable. Happy feelings depend on circumstances. Respect depends on choices. He nods thoughtfully. "I think I understand now why you were willing to ask us to leave. You weren't trying to punish us. I was trying to save myself," I correct. "And in doing that, I saved our family too, because relationships built on one person's self-sacrifice aren't healthy for anyone." "Will you teach me how to plant these?" he asks, picking up a tulip bulb gladly. "But first rule the person whose garden it is gets to decide where everything goes." He laughs, the first genuine laugh I have heard from him since this whole situation began. "Understood, Mom, your garden, your rules." As we work together in the soil, I think about growth, how it requires both roots and space, both nourishment and boundaries, how gardens thrive when every plant has what it needs to flourish, rather than when some plants are sacrificed for others. That night, I sleep peacefully in my own bed, in my own room, in my own house. Tomorrow, I will wake up in the sunroom if I choose, or stay in bed reading if I prefer. I will make decisions about my own life in my own space, surrounded by people who remember that love without respect is just obligation dressed up in prettier words. And in the spring, my tulips will bloom exactly where I planted them, in soil I prepared with my own hands, in a garden that belongs to me. The deed that changed everything sits in my nightstand drawer now, not hidden anymore, but not needed for daily reference either. Everyone knows who owns this house. More importantly, everyone knows who owns her own life. 6 months after that basement conversation, Rachel approaches me while I am arranging flowers in the kitchen. "Margaret, I want to thank you for something I didn't understand at the time." I continue arranging roses, waiting for her to continue. "When you showed us that deed and gave us 60 days notice, I thought you were being cruel. I thought you were choosing property ownership over family love. And now I understand you were teaching us the difference between being welcomed and being tolerated, between being invited and being endured." She sits down at the island, watching me work with the flowers. My mother lives with my sister in California, and last week my sister called me in tears. She said Mom has taken over their guest room and bathroom, rearranged their kitchen, and basically treats their house like her own. My sister feels like a stranger in her own home. I trim a stem and place the rose in the vase. I found myself giving my sister the exact advice you gave us, that love doesn't require surrendering your own space and autonomy. That boundaries aren't walls. They are the framework that makes sustainable relationships possible. "What did your sister say?" she said. She never thought about it that way. She thought setting boundaries with family meant she didn't love them enough. I turned to face Rachel fully. That is the lie we tell ourselves when we are afraid of conflict. We convince ourselves that accommodation equals love, that sacrifice proves devotion. But what it really proves is that we are willing to erase ourselves to avoid difficult conversations. Is that what I was doing to you, asking you to erase yourself, piece by piece? I confirm. And I was letting you because I thought that is what good mothers and grandmothers do. Rachel's eyes fill with tears. I am so sorry, Margaret. Not just for taking your room, but for taking your voice. For making you feel like your comfort didn't matter in your own home. The important thing is that you understand now. And more importantly, you are teaching Tyler and Sophia to understand. They are learning that loving someone means respecting their autonomy, not just expecting their sacrifice. A year later, Tyler graduates from high school with honors. At his graduation party, held in our backyard, I overhear him talking to his girlfriend about college plans. We are looking at apartments near campus, he tells her. My parents offered to let us live at home to save money. But my grandma taught me something important about not taking advantage of family generosity just because it is offered. His girlfriend looks confused. But free housing would save you so much money. Free housing that comes with the cost of someone else's comfort isn't really free. Tyler replies. My grandma owns our house, and we live there because she chooses to let us. Not because we have a right to be there. I want my own place where I can make my own decisions, and my girlfriend can feel welcome, instead of like a guest who might be asked to leave. Pride swells in my chest. He has learned the lesson I was trying to teach, that taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It is essential for healthy relationships. Sophia, now 16, helps me serve cake to the guests. As we work together in the kitchen, she says quietly, Grandma Maggie, can I ask you something personal? Of course, sweetheart. When you told us we had 60 days to move out, were you scared? I pause in my cake cutting, terrified. Really? You seemed so calm and sure. Being sure of what you need to do and being scared to do it aren't opposites. Sophia, they often go together. I was scared of hurting people I love. I was scared of being alone. I was scared of making the wrong choice. Then why did you do it? Because I was more scared of disappearing entirely. I was more scared of becoming someone I didn't recognize, a woman who owned her own house but had no say in how it was run, who built a life but wasn't allowed to live it. She nods thoughtfully. I think I understand. You chose the scary thing that would help you instead of the comfortable thing that was hurting you. Exactly. And in the end, it helped all of us. Your parents learned to respect boundaries. You and Tyler learned that love includes consideration for others' needs. And I learned that asking for what you need isn't selfish, it is necessary. That evening, as the last guests leave and we clean up the party debris, Michael finds me in the garden where I am watering the flowers by moonlight. Mom, I have something to tell you. I look up from the roses, noting the serious tone in his voice. Rachel and I have been talking, and we have decided to start looking for our own place. Not because we are unhappy here, but because we think it is time. My heart clenches with both sadness and pride. What brought this on? Watching Tyler talk about independence tonight made us realize that we have been dependent on you for longer than was healthy for any of us. We want to build our own life while we still have this foundation of love and respect to build on. And how do you feel about that? Excited and terrified, he admits with a laugh, kind of like you must have felt when you decided to build this house. Building something from scratch is always scary. I agree, but it is also the only way to create something that is truly yours. We water the flowers in comfortable silence for a while before he speaks again. Will you help us look for houses? I would love your opinion on construction quality, neighborhood safety, all that practical stuff. I would be honored to help, I tell him. And I will try very hard not to offer opinions about decorating choices, unless specifically asked. He laughs. Feel free to offer those opinions too. We could use all the wisdom we can get. 6 months later, I stand in the driveway watching them load the last boxes into the moving truck. Their new house is 15 minutes away, close enough for frequent visits, far enough for independence. Tyler hugs me goodbye, tall and strong and ready for his own adventures. Thank you for teaching me about respect, Grandma. I am going to remember that lesson my whole life. Sophia clings to me a little longer. I am going to miss living with you every day, but you will appreciate our time together more when it is chosen instead of assumed. I tell her, and you will have your own space to grow into the person you are becoming. Rachel approaches last, her eyes bright with tears and determination. Margaret, I cannot thank you enough for showing us the difference between loving someone and respecting them. We are better people because of what you taught us. You are welcome people because of what you learned. I correct. I just provided the wake-up call. Michael loads the final box and closes the truck. This isn't goodbye, Mom. This is just the beginning of the next chapter. I watch them drive away, my heart full of love and loss and hope. The house feels empty but not lonely. Quiet but not silent. Mine in a way it hasn't been since they moved in. That evening, I sit in my sunroom with a cup of tea and my phone, scrolling through messages from people who found my story online. Women my age who recognize themselves in my experience. Younger women learning to set boundaries with their own families. Men realizing they would been taking their mother's sacrifices for granted. One message stands out. Mrs. Sullivan, your story taught me that asking for respect isn't asking for too much. I am 68, and I just told my daughter that I will not babysit every weekend anymore because I need time for my own life. She was upset at first, but then she thanked me for teaching her about boundaries. Thank you for showing me that I am allowed to have needs too. I set the phone aside and look around my quiet house. Tomorrow, I might invite Patricia over for lunch. Next week, I am starting a pottery class. Next month, I am visiting my sister in Colorado. I have time for all of it because I am no longer spending my energy on managing other people's comfort at the expense of my own. The deed is still in my nightstand drawer, not because I might need to prove ownership again, but because it reminds me of something important. The foundation of any healthy relationship is mutual respect for each other's autonomy. You cannot love someone you don't respect. You cannot respect someone whose needs you ignore, and you cannot build a family on one person's self-sacrifice without eventually destroying what you are trying to protect. As I get ready for bed in my own room, I think about the women watching my story who might be sleeping in basements or spare rooms or couches in houses they helped build or pay for. Women who have convinced themselves that love means accepting less than they deserve. Tomorrow, I will post another video. Not about my story this time, but about resources for understanding property rights, setting family boundaries, and reclaiming your voice when life has taught you to whisper. Because the goal was never to hurt my family. The goal was to save myself so I could love them better. So I could teach them to love me better too, and in my own bed. In my own house, surrounded by the life I built with my own hands. I sleep the deep sleep of someone who knows exactly where she belongs. What do you think about Margaret's choice to reclaim her home and dignity? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members you love? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to her light for more stories about finding your strength when the world tries to dim your shine. Remember, respect has no expiration date, and neither does your right to live with dignity in your own home.